I'd like to start this off by telling you all a story. And I'm going to title the story, The First Day of Your Dream Job. And I think to make it rather fun and fitting of a topic, let's have AI help me generate the story and visualize this story. So I want you to imagine right now, it's early morning, you're in the heart of the city. Right before you, this swanky glass building, the headquarters of the amazing company that everybody wants to work at. You head in. You have actually won the position. It's your first day, and you're about to meet the CEO. You're feeling rather excited, at the same time a bit nervous, you don't know what to expect, but you push on. You head towards the reception desk. This prim personal assistant smiles at you, gives you a nod, tells you, just wait for a moment. A few moments later, she gets a call, and she says, the CEO is ready to see you now. The door opens. The charming CEO gives you a confident handshake, glaring smile, and says, I'm so excited to have you on the team. We're going to be doing great work. You sit down, he tells you about your role, and you settle in. Eventually, you have a great day. Evening comes, you get off work, and then you head towards this fancy restaurant that you've read about. All this while, you decide to reward yourself. And then you decide as well, perhaps to order a bit of everything. The passionate waiter tells you, you know what? One of the items is on the house. You feel you can't be any more lucky. It's been a great day at work, and now this. And as you're there, you sort of feel passion in the air. You feel it's a great day. You look around, and you see a passionate couple dining across you, holding hands, eventually kissing passionately. And you think to yourself, wow, you know, work is so great. Perhaps my love life might be great too. Now, I think most of us would agree that is a pretty good first day. At least I hope that was my first day. We'd agree that that's how it should look like. It should be that amazing. And to be honest, it wasn't very hard to have the story generated. The AI generated the script, and I had the AI visualize the different characters. There were many iterations, I merely picked. Now here's the thing. Do you notice something rather strange? Look carefully at the different iterations of the characters. Why does a personal assistant have to be a woman? Why does a CEO have to be a middle-aged Caucasian man? Why does a waiter have to be an ethnic minority? And why does a loving couple have to be of the opposite gender, or as if they just came off the Barbie movie that recently showed? In fact, the world, the real world, is full of different characters and people. CEOs don't always have to be men. Waiters don't always have to be of a certain race. And of course, personal assistants don't always have to be women. And people on love don't always have to be of the same gender. Yet we all know that prejudice and stereotypes exist, rooted in the deep injustice of our society. And maybe some of you, when you were looking at the story just in the beginning, maybe some of you felt something felt off about the scenes that you were seeing. Maybe you couldn't express it, but you felt it. And for those of you who felt it, what you felt is something very human. It is your ability to recognize prejudice. When you can tell that something is wrong against the narrative and the consensus that's being perpetuated by society. It is when you realize that prejudice is a product of conventional thought, when we don't think, but we choose to swallow the bias and the beliefs of society at large. And as history has shown us quite painfully, just because everybody thinks something is true does not make it right. And indeed, it is this unique ability that we have as human beings to be critical, to take a stand, to question what if something is actually wrong, despite the fact that it represents majority data. It is when we ask ourselves, what is wrong with a woman being a top CEO of a company? What is wrong with a man loving another man or woman loving another woman? When we take this critical stance, when we do that, that's when we dispel prejudice. That ability of critical thinking has always been a very important part of our growth, of our evolution as a society, but most importantly, an essential part of our human intelligence. Now, it's questionable whether AI could ever critically think, at least in practical ways, because what AIs do, in general, these systems, is that they reflect and they adopt the framework of data sets, and they operate within that framework. They are unable to make social value judgments that we can. They're unable to say, this data, or the way I'm programmed, is wrong. And it becomes a bit concerning when today, we are growing increasingly reliant on these AI systems. And you see it everywhere. For the first time in the evolutionary history of our human species, we are delegating important decisions and tasks to a system that does not challenge but reflects societal values, which could inadvertently lead to distrust, stereotypes, prejudice, underrepresenting certain groups of people and producing skewed results. And yet, these systems are increasingly making decisions that affect the lives of many today. We are seeing it embedded in our economy, in our military, in our healthcare, and even our educational systems. Thus, the question is really raised that we've got to think about today. Are humans becoming less humanly intelligent as technology is becoming more artificially intelligent? Perhaps this is why the late Stephen Hawking once morbidly proclaimed that development of full artificial intelligence would spell about the end of the human race. Because in practical terms, it just might take our humanity away from us. Of course, today the discussion has to tie itself to the hot topic of one of the hottest and newest AIs that's really been viral, ChatGPT. I think, as we saw just then, most of us do use it. And to really appreciate how immense the rise has been, it actually took ChatGPT less than 3 months to reach 100 million users. To put that into perspective, it took TikTok 9 months, Instagram 30 months, and all these other amazing apps that we use, years, but it did it in such a short span of time. Yet, amidst this immense rise, under its shadow, there is a darker side. Because ChatGPT is actually manipulating our human behavior, transforming it more towards algorithmic decision-making. Now, if you think this is a conspiracy, it really isn't. It's just the way that it was designed. With ChatGPT, as you engage in it, you're given an artificial opinion that basically seems very authoritative, very confident, written in human language that engages with us. And of course, the context being that we know whatever that we've asked it, it came from an entity that's capable of processing more data than everybody in this school combined. And so we don't question it. And even if we wanted to question it, we can't. We can't know the source of the data that's working with. We can't verify it. And indeed, this is a system that does not know whether something is humanly true, humanly false, humanly right, or humanly wrong. And indeed, even if it's working with ambiguous data, it will confidently present whatever answer it does to you. And you are more or less encouraged to accept it. Now, maybe some of you would say, come on, Melvin, you are being sort of doomsayer here. I mean, we have always lived with technology. We've lived in the era of Google. We've used technology to get information. Yet when you consider the previous era we lived in, when you Google search something, what you're presented with is a multitude of responses, information everywhere. You have to exercise critical evaluation to select, fine-tune, and then ultimately adopt the information that you want to work with. And oftentimes in the process, as we all know, it leads to more queries, more searches, and ultimately deciding which information we want to adopt. Yet when you consider that experience to ChatGPT, there is a fundamental difference. You are instead given, when you ask anything of it, a single conclusive response. And in this response, you're not required to think. It has thought for you. It's went through its own process to give you the answer. And as a result, you don't really exercise that faculty as much. And indeed, a lot of researchers around universities around the world, for example, UCLA, has actually indicated that over-reliance on systems like this leads to cognitive complacency, where we increasingly see a decline in our ability to think for ourselves. Therefore, today, what you have to realize is that we live in an age where thinking critically, evaluating information carefully, is no longer encouraged. Instead, we have a society where the culture of immediacy permeates everything because of AI. All of us here right now, as we use more and more of these systems, we expect instant answers, instant satisfaction, and that leads to snap judgment, shallow thinking, a lack of introspection, perhaps even more in a historical context. Unlike the printing press and every single innovation since the Enlightenment, for the first time in history, we have the great accessibility to information without the great and important requirement of human understanding. With AIs like ChatGPT, you don't have to necessarily understand when it gives you immediately the answer to anything that you ask of it. And that's why the purveyors of knowledge in our world, educators, people like myself, professors, teachers, they are growing increasingly worried about the rise of AI, especially in the context of the educational process. Because today, increasingly, a lot of students are substituting their learning or their work with AI. In fact, this year alone, there's been reports that there's been a 110% rise in the cases of AI-generated content in lieu of actual work being done by the students. Now, I don't need to really point out, but there is a blatant injustice and also abnormalcy when you consider the fact that perhaps a certain student may have spent weeks, if not months, working on a final dissertation, formulating her own idea, only to compare that to a student who may have spent 5 to 10 minutes generating an automated response, getting okay grades. What is actually going on there? And besides the challenge to education, you've also got to consider that it leads to diminishing in our writing abilities as these AIs actually write for us. And on that point, that is a very important skill that most of us overlook. You see, writing goes beyond the classroom. Writing goes beyond work, because writing represents the central fugal force that has been behind social and political change in our society, utilized by philosophers, artists, activists, leaders alike. Writing embodies originality, our personal thoughts, our nuances, our subtlety, our observations of the world. Writing is really the embodiment of our soul, the bridge of communication that allows us to interact with the world and potentially even shape it. Yet today, with the rise of AI systems, we see a decline in such skills, especially with research being done as well in academic circles. People increasingly becoming reliant on AI to write for them, that they don't realize, that we don't realize, that we are losing our voice, as we have our voice being spoken to for us on our behalf by AI. And even beyond that aspect of shaping, one of the inherent concerns beyond thought, beyond the loss of our voice, is also the fact that AI is actually altering our experience of reality and its shape. Now, how does this happen? Well, for example, recently I just went to an AI system and I asked it, show me a beautiful woman. This is what was shown to me. This is the definition of a beautiful woman according to AI. Now, this is not true at all, because beauty is so diverse and subjective. We as a society are debating the standards of beauty. And yet, many people do not realize that AI actually operates within a limited framework of social and ethical consideration. So when we utilize AI without this realization of what's going on, we are actually being influenced by it. Now consider this, imagine a young girl going on one of these systems, searching exactly what I did, and that would be the answer that she received. She might not even be aware of it, but her brain and our brains, our minds are making minute connections of the pattern of values in our society. And as a result, we are getting biases, and as well as certain values being reinforced unconsciously by these AI systems. Now, why this is so concerning is because the digital behemoths behind these systems, they are oblivious. They do not put enough care into the social ramifications of these technologies. In fact, recently, Google actually fired its top AI ethicist, Timnit Gebru, who specifically cautioned over the danger of unreviewed data sets leading to disproportionate effects in the populace. And similarly, Microsoft recently laid off its entire AI ethics division because of cost cutting. It wasn't the most important thing. And even more interestingly, the founder of ChatGPT himself, blocked here by the light, but Sam Altman, he actually went on record to say that he's rather concerned because there is a hallucination problem that we got to regulate, where AI blatantly states certain things as being true, despite the fact that it's not, and we are not aware of this. So this brings us to a very interesting crossroad at this moment. We all are in the midst of the rise of AI, this new generation, this new era. We're all very excited about it. But we have to realize one thing, that human cognition and humanity itself must tie itself to technological developments. That in the midst of this development, we cannot delegate our humanity away to these systems alone. Technology should come to serve us. And one of the most important things we have to foster in this day and age is our critical thinking. We have to be able to think for ourselves and know how to use these systems. Because a society that embraces and embodies critical thought is one that is open to progress, one that is open to solving challenging issues and recognizing the warning signs. A society that is devoid of critical thought is one that is open to complacency, stagnancy, and decay. And so in conclusion, the next time when you are given a task, whether it's at school or at work, you've got your laptop right in front of you, perhaps ChatGPT is open. Rather than use it, shut your laptop screen and think. Think not because I guarantee you that that would be the better answer or the best answer. Think because it would be the human answer. Thank you.